everyone. Welcome to Harlem Beat, a community affairs show produced by the radio journalism class at the City College of New York. I'm Maya Valerio, your host for the evening. You can listen to or watch this broadcast live at www.whcr.org. To start, we'll kick off this evening with this week's top headlines and then pass it over to our feature reporter, Taylor Coleman, for her interview with the star of the off-Broadway play Rashida Speaking, a gripping show that explores race, power, and friendship in the workplace. And now, here's reporter Gladys Brea with your top stories. In national news, according to democracynow.org, on Monday, March 30th, Purvi Patel became the first person in U.S. history to be sentenced to prison for feticide for what the state said was an attempt to end her own pregnancy. While Patel says she had a miscarriage, delivering a stillborn fetus, prosecutors accused her of taking drugs to induce an abortion. Even though no drugs were found in her system, they also used a discredited test to claim the fetus was born alive. Patel was sentenced to 20 years in prison by the state of Indiana. According to AmsterdamNews.com, workers are preparing for a national strike. It is said to be the largest rally to take place on Tax Day, April 15th. A series of rallies and marches will take place nationally with fast food cooks, adjunct professors, and cashiers who are calling for an increase in wages to $15, as well as freedom to join unions without fear of retaliation. This day of action will be the first since the fast food workers walked off the job in November of 2012. Locations of the riots are not confirmed and is said to be sporadic throughout the nation. In local news, according to DNAinfo.com, a public greenhouse, 100 trees, and a technology center for children are some of the projects proposed and the district's first go at a participatory budgeting. Since 2011, City Council members have set aside $1 million of their budget for community input in a design. For the first time, Councilman Mark Levine has participated in the program and may be implementing some of the suggestions in Hamilton Heights and Harlem. Some of those ideas include putting a public greenhouse and a community garden on 143rd Street and converting the basement of Hamilton Grange Library into a 600-square-foot after-school learning center. According to AM New York, the MTA's $32 billion five-year plan on transportation upgrade for subway cars, tracks, and signal systems received approval for the state while falling short of $15 billion to fully fund the plan. How MTA plans to generate the revenue is up in the air. As the saying goes, April showers bring May flowers. Get your umbrellas because it is going to rain all day tomorrow, Friday, April 3rd. But you can look forward to 50-degree weather and sunshine for the Easter weekend.
Domestic violence and abuse can happen at anyone, yet the problem is frequently ignored, excused, or denied. According to an article by the Huffington Post, 24 women per minute experience violence with their partner. According to the hotline.org, between 55 and 95% of women in 10 different countries, including the United States, who had been physically abused had never contacted non-governmental organizations, shelters, or the police for help. Domestic violence has become a worldwide epidemic. If you are a victim of domestic violence or if you know someone who is being abused, you don't have to be afraid to tell. You can contact WARM. WARM stands for We All Really Matter and is located right here in Harlem. You can contact them at 347-346-6210 or visit their website at www.weallreallymatter.org. WARM will help you heal from and leave an abusive relationship. They will also help you transition from a shelter and rebuild your life. Again, that number is 347-346-6210.
Texting while driving is dangerous. The driver who is texting is distracted, putting himself, pedestrians, and other drivers at risk. Statistics show that 25% of all car accidents, or 1 million car crashes a year, involve a distracted driver. In 2012, 3,500 people were killed and 400,000 were injured due to distracted drivers. It never makes sense to read and text while driving. So if it's an emergency that you have to make a phone call, in some cars, you can pair the car's Bluetooth with your cell phone and keep your hands free. So please, for the safety of you and everyone around you, keep your eyes on the road and not on your phone.
Today, racism continues to remain deeply ingrained in our culture. In the workplace, minorities continue to face explicit and hidden racism from their peers. Many businesses adopt a culture of silence or denial because it can be difficult to address. Joel Drake Johnson brings this issue to the forefront with his off-Broadway production, Rashida Speaking. Our feature reporter Taylor Coleman has more.
The way groups are perceived in society is often reflected in the way they are treated in the workplace, in department stores, and by law enforcement. The killing of 4 unarmed black males, 43-year-old Eric Gardner, 28-year-old Akai Gurley, 18-year-old Michael Brown, and 12-year-old Tamir Rice has brought the issue of racism to the forefront of discussions in America. As a result, campaigns like Black Lives Matter has galvanized people of all races to take to the streets of protest with these killings. Rashida Speaking is a play that takes a satirical jab at racism. In the studio with us today is the Tony Award-winning star of Rashida Speaking, Miss Tanya Pinkins.
Hi, Taylor.
Thank you. Miss Pinkins is an author, a television, film, and theater actress known for her portrayal of lawyer Livia Fry on the long-running soap opera All My Children. In 1992, she won a Tony Award for her portrayal of Sweet Anita in Jelly's Last Jam, where she played opposite the late Gregory Hines. Pinkins also nominated for another Tony Award for her performance in another George C. Wolfe production, Caroline or Change. Miss Pinkins, welcome to Harlem Beat.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Let's reminisce a bit about Jelly's Last Jam, the phenomenal late great George Hines and George C. Wolfe. In an article you wrote this past February for Playbill, you say, quote, "Ask anyone who ever worked with George and they will tell you that it ruins your life. Never after that will you have as much fun, learn so much, and be so challenged to be your most brilliant self, except in the presence of this man who acts the highest of himself at all times," end quote. What inspired you to write that about director George C. Wolfe?
Well, Playbill asked me to write about a production in the American Musical Theater for African American History Month, a really important show, and I feel that Jelly's Last Jam was one of those productions. It kind of changed the look of Broadway musicals. George, his direction, his style of the show, the look of the show was unlike anything that had ever happened. And so I couldn't possibly talk about Jelly's Last Jam without talking about George C. Wolfe because he conceived it, wrote it, and directed it.
Of course. You have been described as bringing a dramatic depth to your characters through your commanding stage presence and versatile vocal technique. What do you feel you brought to the character, Sweet Anita, that earned you a Tony?
Anita was like women I grew up with in Chicago, my grandmother and my great-grandmother, and I knew my grandmother's grandmothers on both sides of my family. And at the time, I was still in my 20s, and I'd only been playing ingenues. And this was my first chance to be a woman and be the women who had raised me. And the part could have just been done as a very comic piece, but I hope that I brought the depth of womanhood to it.
How does it feel working with the late Gregory Hines?
Gregory was a genius. To watch him go out on stage and improvise every night, and he was also like that as an actor. We would have fun on that stage, never knowing what was going to happen next because he liked to improvise. He liked to be surprised. He liked to be challenged, and that's what I like as well in the theater, so we had fun every night.
That sounds fun. What are some of the challenges that you have experienced as a Black actress on Broadway?
Well, I want to say before I say a challenge, one of the best things I experienced as a Black actress on Broadway was being Caroline in Caroline or Change and having my image of a maid in a white maid's uniform on the marquee of a Broadway theater. I thought that was pretty radical and astonishing because I believe Black women are the foundation of this country. They couldn't have built it with slaves and Black women who were maids. So that's exciting. It's always a challenge when you're working and you have non-Black people representing you. Fortunately, I've worked mostly with George C. Wolfe, so I haven't had that very often. But, in Rashida, Joel is a 65-year-old gay white man, and this is his idea of what a black woman is. I happen to be a black woman from Chicago, so there were many things that I was like, no, this is just not the truth of me or the people I know.
All right. How do you feel about doing live theater about a hot topic button such as racism?
It was very exciting. It was very difficult and it was very challenging. I was the only Black American in the room for the entire process. So it was frustrating at times to have people who don't know the truth of what it is to be a Black woman, because they haven't been one, telling me that I was wrong about what I was saying was accurate or inaccurate. I ended up arranging for the talkbacks and bringing some heavy hitter speakers. Dr. Kim Crenshaw came in. And she said something that was very powerful to me. She said, for instance, in an office situation, the white employees will only notice and note behavior that fits their stereotypical idea of what a Black person is or an other is. And behavior that doesn't fit their stereotypical idea, they won't notice it. It's like it doesn't exist. So, for instance, in the play, the character Jacqueline has an immaculate desk. She types very fast. She can talk and work at the same time. She gets a lot of work done. The report to HR would not notice. They wouldn't have talked about her typing or how much she gets work done. They would only talk about the way she dressed or the way she talked to a patient. So it was almost like rehearsing the play was the same. When I would try to tell the people I was working with that this was not accurate, it was like trying to tell them a fish what water is. They couldn't see it because the only way they see Black people was the way they saw them. So for me to say, hey, you're not seeing me and I'm not like what you think you're seeing, they just didn't have the capacity to understand.
I can understand that. So you were saying how your character's name in the show Rashida Speaking, her name was Jacqueline.
Yes.
Why do you feel that they titled the play Rashida Speaking then?
I do not know. And I'm so glad that there was some amount of actor denial that was there for me, that a writer friend of mine came in like the next second to the last week and said, the play is called Nigger Speaking, right? And I was like, oh my God, you're right. And, people would come up to me after the show and go, hey, Rashida. And I had to be like, no, I'm not Rashida. Oh, I was a Rashida. No, you were not a Rashida. And I think there's something about the fact that the play, was called Rashida Speaking. And the writer says in the play, Rashida was the new word for nigger. So that's what the play was called.
What experience or information did you draw onto the play with this character?
I think that because I was working with what I would call the good white people who were hoping to do something different and good and to make a difference, I tried to remind myself, you can't beat up the good white people, because if you do that, then you won't have anybody trying to help us out. So I really tried to put as much humanity on this character as possible and to make her as kind and generous and nice. And it was very disappointing to me when the audience members were still able to project on me their stereotypical fears of an angry Black woman. And sometimes the other actress would come out and say, Tanya was so sweet to me today. It was difficult for me to say my lines about her being impatient with me because she just wasn't. But the audience would still see me in that way, even when I, as the actress, was not playing that. So that was an affirmation of the kind of things that Dr. Crenshaw was talking about.
Okay. You are listening to Harlem Beat on WHCR 90.3 FM. In the studio with us today is a Tony Award-winning actress Tanya Pinkin, star of the off-Broadway play Rashida Speaking. We're going to take a quick break.
Racism is a kind of prejudice associated with race, ethnicity, or physical characteristics. This kind of prejudice denotes that some races or ethnic groups are superior to others in skin color, thoughts, beliefs, intelligence, culture, or character. What can you do? There are many ways you can stand up against racism without putting yourself at risk. Say something. If you feel offended by the actions or expressions of someone else, Speak up and let them know how you feel. Walk away. Sometimes saying nothing and walking away is also a good way to say, I'm above racism and there is no room in my life for it. Tell someone. Sometimes your friends and family can be your best support group. If you're being discriminated on social media, report it. Many social media sites have no tolerance for bullying or racism. Facebook and Instagram allow you to report content that breaches its terms of use. You can also make a formal complaint if you're experiencing any type of racism or prejudice. In 2012, a New York City MTA passenger contacted 311 to report racist ads on the subway. This is just one of the many platforms you can use to report racism. Log on to nyc.gov for more information. Want to get involved? Go into itstopswithme.humanrights.gov for information on how you can help stop racism. And for help and support on dealing with racism, visit antihate.vic.gov and Anti-Racist Alliance for resources. Remember, racism isn't the norm. Don't make room for it.
It's Whcr, the boys all Harlem.
So sweet.
Okay, we are back. So, Miss Pinkins, some critics have said that some of the dialogue is unrealistic. Like when a patient at a doctor's office says that her son told her that blacks often act out because they're still bitter about slavery. What message do you feel the playwright was trying to convey by using such overt dialogue?
I disagree completely with that critic. That was the New York Times, and white people say far worse things to our face. That was nothing. Because they both see us as invisible when they want something and we're in the way of it. We just don't exist. And then we're over visible when they need to use us as a scapegoat for something that they are responsible for. We even had a talk back where Dr. Kim Crenshaw, who's a PhD from Harvard, Stanford, Cornell, she's in there talking, and someone went, "You're so eloquent." And I had to pull that person aside later and say, that was racially insensitive. That was as if you were speaking as if you didn't expect her to be eloquent. What else would a PhD from Harvard law be? But it's like an unconscious thing that they have because they are primed with these stereotypical images that they see on TV, that they read about, that they're educated to. They're primed. They don't know the truth. They don't know black people. Or the ones they know are the ones they meet at work, and that's an exception, but we are still a very segregated community. We don't go to church together. We don't have dinner together. We see each other on subways. We see each other at work, and other than that, we really don't know anything about other people's lives, and all of us need to make an effort to learn about others. Dr. Dyson came in, Michael Eric Dyson came in, and he said, the mistake that the slave masters made was they made us walk behind them. So we had to listen and hear and know everything about them, but they don't know anything about us.
Yes, it's so deep. What has been the racial composition of most of the audience that you've played for?
Predominantly Caucasian, but I worked very, very hard to get Marcia Pendleton, Walk Tall Girl Productions, to be hired. They hired her for a month to do specific outreach to the African American communities. As I said, I brought Michael Eric Dyson and Marcia Dyson and Dr. James Peterson and Dr. Kim Crenshaw in to do talkbacks. The talkbacks, 90% of the audience would stay. That was predominantly Caucasian, and they wanted to talk. This play stirred up things in them, and they needed to talk about it, and they had no other place to talk about it. So we created this safe space for people to have a dialogue about race, and people wanted to know. And so that was probably the ministry that I felt about doing that work. As difficult a play as it was to play, there was good that was done by those talkbacks and people getting a chance to have conversations with people who they would never meet in real life or hear their point of view.
Okay. Your character, Jacqueline, made a few racist comments about another ethnic group. Tell us about that and how that made you feel?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say that racism to me is a very specific thing. We can be bigoted, we can be prejudiced, but when it rises to an ism, that is the power to take your bigotry and your ignorance and to turn it into laws and to turn it into controlling where people live. Jacqueline was bigoted, but she wasn't racist. She couldn't control where the Mexicans live. She couldn't deport the Mexicans. She may have thought things about the Mexicans, but racism it was not, because she had no power over them.
Great answer. Some have characterized this as a post-racial climate in America. But with the racism people in this country have shown towards blacks, Muslims, and immigrants, what is the message in Rashida's speaking?
Well, I'm gonna sidestep for a minute. I happen to be reading a book right now by Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, who is a Washington, D.C. psychiatrist, and she attempted to create what she called a unified field theory about behavior of people. And she puts forth a theory that I'm just putting it out here because I'm reading about it right now, that racism, white supremacy, is all about the genetically recessive Caucasian people who are numerically the minority on the planet, trying to prevent their own annihilation. So therefore, they have to suppress the black man, who is the strongest amount of genetic material that would annihilate Caucasians if there was intermarriage. So the genitalia of black men was often burned and cut off in lynchings, and that in their subconscious there is this projection of hatred onto the thing that in their mind would actually annihilate them. If there is too much intermingling with all of the peoples of color, which are 3/4 of the planet, they would eventually become non-existent.
Talk about the difference between acting for TV versus film versus theater.
Acting on the stage is the actor's medium. We are in control. We are there with the audience. The audience is our partner. It's the most exciting thing for me. It's the thing I've done the most. But I did just have the privilege of working with Ava DuVernay on her new pilot for CBS called For Justice. And I have to say, I've never had an experience like that. I've never in my entire career had a hair and makeup test before I started production. And that's probably why those black people look so beautiful in Selma. And she is a goddess on the set. She comes out, she greets everybody with a hug. She knows exactly what she wants. She speaks to everybody courteously. She speaks to the extras and tells them what they're there for. And you see this goddess woman who is controlling a set and who is doing it with love. There's no insecurity. She doesn't have to posture and look down or treat anybody down. So for me, I was so comfortable with her that I feel like I did some of my best work because I wasn't so afraid of, oh my God, they might replace me if I don't get it right. She just made me feel like you're here and I'm happy to have you here. But the TV in film is a medium for the director. You have to trust that you do 4 takes. If they're all different, you don't know which one the director's going to see. So when you go to the movie, you might not be in it, or the performance that you get, it's the director's choice of what takes they chose to put together in what order.
So with that pilot experience happening, would you say that you prefer that acting as opposed to maybe theater or even a full-length film?
I couldn't say I prefer it. As I said, she is an exception as a director. And still, the theater is the place where the actor is king. We are on that stage and we have control of how that play is going to go every night. But I would like to do a lot more TV and film because TV has gotten to be really, really good.
It really has. So let's talk about the Oscars. With the exception of Common and John Legend winning an Oscar this year for the song Glory, Black people were shut out of the Oscars. Some critics say that the only time blacks win Oscars is when they are playing unflattering, stereotypical roles like Denzel Washington's corrupt cop in Training Day, or Monique's abusive mother character in Precious, and Halle Berry's over-sexualized character in Monster Balls. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think it goes back to what Dr. Crenshaw said. White people don't even recognize, we are not visible to them except when we are fitting a stereotype that they hold in their mind. So if we are anything other than the stereotype, they don't even see us. But when we conform to that stereotype completely, then they can applaud us. And that's something that I struggled with playing Jacqueline. She was written as such a stereotype. Do I find the humanity? And some nights I'd find the humanity, and some nights I go, you know what? I'm going to go all the way with the stereotype. What I found is that the white audience, no matter how I chose to play her, they always only saw the stereotype.
So, what's up next for you?
Next for me, I have an arc on Nurse Jackie this season. Working with Leslie Uggams. And of course, this For Justice will come out. And it looks like in the fall I'm going to be playing Mother Courage at Classic Stage Company. And Brian Kulik, who's the artistic director of that theater, will be setting it in the Congo.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Miss Tanya Pinkins, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us on Harlem Beat.
Thank you, Taylor. It's my pleasure.
Back to you, Maya.
Corruption and crime continues to plague our neighbor Mexico as fingers point to Mexico's federal police for the disappearance of 43 students, sparking international outrage and protest. To elaborate on this story is feature reporter Janice Jimenez with our next studio guest.
Harlem has its own radio station.
For you and yours,
WHCR 90.3 FM.
the livest party in the whole universe.
The voice of Harlem.
You are a waste, a loser. Everyone hates you. Why don't you just stay in your car and keep driving? I'm serious. Drive until you run out of gas, then get out of your car and walk until you find someone who doesn't think you're dumber than bricks. Could take a while, but at least all that walking might burn a couple of calories.
You may not witness bullying like this every day. Your kids do. They want to help, but they don't know how. Visit stopbullying.gov to learn safe, simple ways your child can help stop bullying. Be more than a bystander at stopbullying.gov. A message from the Ad Council.
Nurse, set up an IV. And you, her boyfriend, you were the driver?
Yes, doctor, but I didn't mean to hurt her. I only had a few drinks. I was just buzzed.
Just buzzed? Oh, then your girlfriend is fine.
Hey, sweetie. I feel great.
She's really okay?
What, are you kidding? No, not really. Nurse, get me a suture kit. Stat.
Buzzed driving. Maybe we should stop acting like it's no big deal. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation and the Ad Council.
There's hundreds of fun and simple things you and your family can do to live a healthier lifestyle. Here's 20 of them. Eat less, eat slower, eat smarter, eat your fruits and veggies. Stop eating before you're full. Up your fiber, lower your calories, get off the bus early, do some gardening, do jumping jacks, take the stairs, take one, not two, take on a new sport, take a long walk home, walk instead of drive, bend, stretch, reach for the stars, climb the monkey bars, skip the fudge bars. Search We Can online to find more ways you and your family can get healthy together. A message from the Ad Council, HHS, and NIH's We Can program.
Hello, and welcome to today's lottery drawing. Good luck. And here's today's winning numbers. First one up, it's not yours. Second one, not yours. And another number that's not yours. Okay, this is one number that's yours. It's a 5, but you don't get any money for that. And the final number is not yours.
Yep, so chances are you're not going to hit the lottery anytime soon. Don't get us wrong, the lottery can be fun every now and then. Just please don't rely on it for your future savings. How about this? Brew your own coffee at home instead of buying that latte every day. Brown bag it to work instead of ordering in. Ride your bike instead of buying all that gas. These changes alone can save you thousands a year. Thousands. Small changes today, big bucks tomorrow. Feed that piggy bank. Go to feedthepig.org for more free ideas on how to save. Feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
Hi, you're listening to WHCR 90.3 FM New York. Yay!
Under the slogan, "A life you took them, a life we want them back," protesters around the world have gathered to demand the return of the 43 Mexican students. On the night of September 26, 2014, in the city of Iguala, in the state of Guerrero, municipal police opened fire against a group of youngsters. According to truthout.com, the youngsters were normalistas, or teachers in training from a small rural teachers' college in Ayotzinapa, Guerrero. They had gone on a trip to Mexico City when they were attempting to return, and Iguala police intersected their buses and began shooting at them. The attack killed 6 people, including 3 students, and injured 25 others. But the true horror began when police took 43 of the normalistas into custody and disappeared them with the help, some speculate, from the Mexican military. The 43 have never been found. Their plight has erupted into a struggle for a better government and an end to Mexico's failed state. On April 14, 2015, parents of the disappeared normalistas are expected to arrive in New York City to make an international call for justice. In the studio with us today, we have Mr. Ricardo.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. So can you tell us a little bit, what does normalista stand for in English?
Sure. Well, normalista refers to teachers in training. In Mexico, there are 13 or close to 13 normales that focus on training future teachers or potential teachers for primary, secondary, and what is the equivalent of high school education here in the United States. Currently, the majority of them are facing austerity measures, which simply means that they are being defunded in favor of either private colleges or colleges oriented towards more technical training, non-education related.
Okay. And can you tell us, why are the parents coming to the United States?
Sure. So the intention of the caravan has always been twofold. From the parents' standpoint, they are trying to reach out to Mexicans living abroad and to raise awareness on the case. The intention also is to have a broader international forum that will allow them to reach distinct organizations that may be able to place pressure on the Mexican government. Representatives of the parents have gone to the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. They made their case there during a session, a 12-hour session, in which distinct NGOs presented their respective cases for forced disappearance. So the parents have two goals. One is to reach out to the Mexican community not living in Mexico and living in the United States or Canada, and to also make their case on in front of an international audience, and in particular, international bodies.
Okay. And I know that since 2008, the U.S. government has given about $3 billion in military aid to the Mexican government to fight the so-called drug war. How does that relate to the Ayotzinapa case?
The vast majority of the police and military forces in Iguala were either trained in units that received some type of material support from the United States, or they had hardware that was supported from the United States. Either way, and at every level, the Merida Initiative has had some influence in the way that the armed forces of Mexico behave, operate, and the ability for them to actually physically carry out the task. So it's multiple effects.
And when you say hardware, do you mean guns?
Could you repeat that one more time?
When you say hardware, do you mean guns?
Yes, hardware, military hardware. So this means AR-15s, Black Hawk helicopters, everything from bulletproof vests to Kevlar helmets used in Iraq, shoulder pads, knee pads, elbow pads, Kevlar gear that's extremely expensive and difficult to acquire unless done so through military channels. And these military channels are based in the United States. Armstack, Armalite, Colt, different groups who can sell in bulk to certain buyers only with the explicit permission of the United States are selling these weapons to the Mexican government, and doing so with U.S. taxpayer subsidy.
And why the students? Why take 43 students?
It's tough to understand the motives. Speaking with the students directly, even they don't understand exactly why they would choose to have such a brazen approach to policing. In the past, the Mexican government has killed normalistas either through the overt and intense repression of open protest or through other means. So to rewind, in December 2011, 2 normalistas were killed in the Chilpancingo-Acapulco highway as they were protesting the austerity measures that were being passed throughout Mexico and that were impacting their school in particular. So these normalistas were protesting, and armed civilians, or actually armed federal police, who were later ID'd by people, but in civilian clothing, shot at the normalistas and killed 2 of them. So there has been plenty of tension in the past against the normalistas, plenty of repression. But the fact that it was 43, I think, signals a shift. The normalistas themselves speculate that it's simply a message from the Mexican government to all other social movements to scale down their actions or to fear that type of reprisal. It hasn't only been in Ayotzinapa that students have been disappeared. In the past 6 months, students from UAM Xochimilco, the Metropolitan Autonomous University, have also been kidnapped and later have surfaced dead and mutilated, particularly women. Students from the Polytechnical Institute have also appeared, have also been kidnapped and murdered. So the attack is against all students and all social movements. The Ayotzinapa case is emblematic, and I think was intended as an intimidation effort on part of the Mexican government. Right now, they're passing a series of very unpopular reforms, dealing from everything from education to oil, and none of these have any popular support, so they have to pass them through force, direct and indirect, and in this case, it was very direct.
And why is the U.S. media so, how can we say it? It's so uninvolved in what is actually happening in Mexico, and so involved in what is happening in the Middle East?
Well, I think there you have to analyze the function of most corporate media. Most corporate media are, by design, representing entrenched interests of the U.S. economy. So, for instance, General Electric for a long time was a majority shareholder in NBC. And so most coverage that had to do something with nuclear energy was shifted in such a way as to not cast it in a bad light, at least within NBC. And that's a tiny example, but for instance, to come up to date, the New York Times now has Carlos Slim, Mexico's richest man and the world's richest man, and Mexico's owner of a telecommunications monopoly. He is now a majority shareholder of the New York Times. And for this reason, you have very tepid, very tame criticism of the Peña Nieto government. So, in other words, most media